Spoiler, there ain't no martial art in the United States that has that. Short or post or whatever from Jiu-Jitsu. I like this guy a lot. He does a lot of really cool coaching online. You don't always have to train Jiu-Jitsu to get into what this guy's saying, but I would say like 80% of stuff is about Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu with him, which I mean, he's a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu teacher. But I want to just kind of share my perspective on some of this.
Have a very clear sort of code and canon, and this is how we do this thing across the board, right? And then that's kind of how everybody does it. You know, again, there are obviously some variations to it, but there's a lot more tangible. This is it. This is what is expected of you.
So he's talking about belt promotions. He's talking about rank within martial arts, specifically in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. And a lot of times, for those not in the know, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's very interpretive for schools. There's no overall sanctioned authority across all Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu schools that give rank. Spoiler, there ain't no martial art in the United States that has that.
Whereas Jiu-Jitsu is very ambiguous with a lot of this belt promotion stuff. And every gym's a little bit different, right? Because you got to understand, like when judo was created, right? Kano got together and he's like figuring it out, and it started with him and then it worked outward, right? Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, which I didn't know this, and I was reading Robert Drysdale's new book recently, and he was talking about back in the day, it just was called Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah, right. I think that's kind of funny.
Yeah. That was it, right? And then it wasn't until after the 90s that all of a sudden it became Brazilian, and there's Gracie Jiu-Jitsu and this whole thing, right? But back in the day, it was just Jiu-Jitsu.
Different flavors of Jiu-Jitsu. Even nowadays, the Gracie Jiu-Jitsu, which is what I've trained, is considered sort of old school. Like there's more newer tournament style sport jiu-jitsu that some of the more old schoolers look downward on. Spoiler alert, all the martial arts in the United States are that way.
But with that, there wasn't a clear canon or code or this is how we do it, because there were so many different flavors of jiu-jitsu going around and so many different coaches and lineages and everything else. And because of that, jiu-jitsu sort of grew up in a very weird thing where everybody's a little different. We do things very differently.
I have more to say on that.
Some gyms have a green belt for adults, some don't. Some give stripes away, some don't. Some have a clear test that you use for your belt promotions, some don't. Some go off.
Yeah, some jiu-jitsu schools do testing while others don't. Others actively make fun of it.
Off of merit or other factors and things like that. And so it's all over the place. And every gym's a little bit different. A lot of martial arts.
So here's my opinion on this. And this is no shade on jiu-jitsu. I love the guy. I love jiu-jitsu. I love all martial arts. I have trained for a long, long time. I'm a 3rd degree black belt in karate, and I have trained jiu-jitsu for 5 years. I have trained Muay Thai for almost the same amount of time. I teach this. I've done kickboxing. I've done MMA. I've done CrossFit for 13, 14 years. I own a gym. I own a dojo. I teach. I coach. That's just to tell you where I'm coming from. I'll tell you a story. I remember I was training jiu-jitsu and COVID happened and the schools got shut down. And I remember talking to some of the people that I was training with over Messenger or whatever, and they were saying, I really wish we had a way to train jiu-jitsu by ourselves. And now these same guys always sort of put my martial arts experience below theirs, even though I had 8, 10 more years than they did in training because of what I trained versus what they trained. And I said, well, in karate, we have things called kata, where we can train by ourselves. It'd be kind of nice if jujitsu had some of that. um, that's just my little backhanded way to say, like, it's kind of funny that we had something where we could continue our training in the karate world versus jujitsu, where they were like, we can't have partners, we can't train. Well, that's bullshit because you can do solo drills. There's lots of things you can do. Um, but my point is that particularly in the jujitsu world, I think we're seeing it play out. Whereas, like in karate, it has been around for a long time. It's gone through its cycle of, capitalism, where we have these things, McDojos or whatever you want to call them. And there's areas of jujitsu that are becoming that, whether they like it or not. They're going to go through the same cycle. It's interesting to watch it kind of happen and to watch them discover it. A lot of people. I mean, there's tons of people that have trained, that just train and they don't give a shit about these conversations. Those are the people you should find and train with, in my opinion. Everything that's been done before will be repeated. And it's just kind of cool to watch it, and experience it. I'm just happy to be a part of all of it. But I thought this is a neat area of thought and discussion, and we're seeing it play out in this world, tiny little subsection of martial arts. Whereas I think in a lot of other martial arts realms, it's already kind of come to pass. And you can learn a lot from everyone else. So look outside of your own little world, and you can learn things. And I think maybe the larger message of what jujitsu has for us is that. So just look outside of yourself and learn. I think you'll be better off. Thanks, Chewy.